Hi there. I want to start quickly by talking about substance use. We're going to dive into how to distinguish which substance related disorder is being diagnosed and if there are any comorbid mental illnesses that are associated with the substance use diagnosis. So, to start off, I chose the case of Ray. Ray is a 42-year-old African American male who began drinking at age 12. Oh, I am sorry. What? That is not even the right case. It's Susan. Um, Susan's case is a little different. She started drinking in college in her younger years, and as her tolerance increased, she ended up getting a DUI. So that is the case that we're studying right now. Um, so let's see. Um, the notes I made on her case and how to diagnose the substance use disorder, granted the structured interviewing assessment, is I thought it would be pertinent to ask a few questions that to dive deeper into what started her substance use disorder. The reason why I chose structured interviewing is because when you take a look at the textbook, it'll tell you that structured interviewing is a more, what do you call that, formal process. So basically, you're not diving into rapport so much. You're pretty much just asking straightforward questions, sort of like a mental health disorder assessment. There's more research and less rapport. That's why I chose it. So some of the questions sound like, how often did you attend parties to drink? This is getting at a latency. What were your thoughts leading up to your DUI? So, does the client remember anything before they got in the car? What were your thoughts after seeking counsel? Did you feel any sort of relief? Is there anything in your client's response that indicates that, okay, yeah, now that I've been arrested and I sought counseling, this is how I feel? They might not say how they feel. I'm really getting at the thoughts, right? What were they thinking that might pinpoint some other disorders that we're looking for? Another mental health illness I thought of that could be comorbid with substance use disorder is anxiety. Some people have really high anxiety that lead them to drink. Comorbidity is a comorbidity is a term that distinguishes a relation between two mental health illnesses. So one of them could be, say, someone is really stressed at work and they just drink to numb that stress. It's just typically associated that people who have high anxiety are more likely to drink, which can also be found in the DSM 5. What else are we looking at here? What are we looking for? So we have the substance use assessment, the substance use disorder, a comorbid disorder, what that means, what we're looking for within the assessment, those three questions. What am I missing? One positive thing that I saw in her case is that Susan is attending counseling and she was willing. That's a really big and good first step, in my opinion, because oftentimes people who get arrested are what do you call that? It's mandatory counseling, but she sounds like she's really willing to be there. So that's really good. Maybe because she's in college, she has that support system to say, okay, wait, I don't want to ruin my life. I still have college. So that's a big one for her, it sounds like. What else are we looking for? Mm, just, I think the most important assessment to define why it might be uh, an actual comorbid mental illness, anxiety, with the substance use disorder of alcohol. I didn't even say. alcohol related disorder. Um, I guess while I'm here at that point, I will pinpoint why I want to consider alcohol related disorder as her diagnosis is because it has been occurring for over 12 months. And within that 12-month period, her tolerance has increased. So she started drinking more than she originally needed to feel the same effect in the beginning. And her desire to feel that effect has increased. So those are my supporting reasons why I chose alcohol related disorder. And then the reason why I want to further understand if anxiety truly is the cause behind the alcohol use. Um, what I want to look at when meeting with Susan within the first counseling session, if I start to see like anxiety behaviors, is what do you call, like, instead of the structured interviewing process, which she would have been more familiar with in the first half of the session, is going to shift and it's going to become semi structured, which means there's a little bit more rapport. We'll talk about what happened at the party, what's going on at work, what's going on at home, try to get to some of those deeper causes potentially. Those might not always be the cause of anxiety, but if we use semi structured interviewing, which is an assessment that allows us to use both formal and informal processes, that way we can stop if something's coming up for Susan. We can take a different route and maybe think about a comorbid disorder such as anxiety, which might help her understand the alcoholism a little bit better. And rather than just blaming herself or calling yourself an addict, she can say, "Oh, I just really have anxiety, and this is how I deal with it um, more responsibly." And so that's what I would look at for Susan. Um, yes, I would say that using those assessments would really help her both critically when it comes to alcohol use disorder, um, alcohol related disorder, and using a semi structured assessment would help get to the bottom of some of those other underlying issues that aren't typically always found. Sometimes it takes some more talking to see some of those mannerisms that tend to come up. Are they twitching? Are they looking away? Are they stuttering? What is their speech like? Some of that might be, excuse me, mentally related to work. So maybe she sounds really fine when she's talking about being at a party, but when you shift the conversation to work, maybe she has a hard time breathing. Maybe, some other things come up. So that's why I think when you start to speak more freely with your clients, even though some new research points to eliminating rapport and being more centered on empirically supported interventions, I still believe that there's something about freeing up the room and allowing your client to talk. Um, can see how their body shifts non-verbally, and how that matches their verbal words. So on that note, I think that kind of wraps up the assignment. Let's double check. Yeah, I think that was a really good assignment, and I loved working on it. Um, it was really fun. I studied assessment. I totally go over the 15-minute mark, and I just can never figure out why I talk so much. But this assignment was really concise, and I loved working on it because before, when I was at Arizona State University, um, I had a class that's way similar. Actually, I've done a lot of assessments and a lot of diagnosis, and it really is, when it comes down to diagnosing, you got to be straightforward. You got to talk about why you're diagnosing someone, and like be thorough and make sure that they haven't met enough of the criteria to be able to say, okay, this is what we think it is. I loved your input of, hey, what if it's comorbid with a mental illness? And that's huge, um, because then it kind of alleviates some of that stress of being labeled with just one diagnosis, whereas a secondary diagnosis might help them understand a little bit more why those two things cross. and maybe realize, oh, if I can solve or find a solution as to like why my anxiety rises when I talk about work versus school, then maybe it helps them get to the bottom of like what they're trying to get to. So I really liked your input on like that component is really new to me. With all of the diagnosing, like just going real deep into the DSM-5, I've never thought about comorbidity in that light, despite always once I first learned it, comorbidity, the understanding of it, I never thought to put two and two together. I will have to hold on to that. Okay. Well, I guess that's all. Happy grading.